Okay, welcome today to our program. It's all about leveraging professional organizations for your career growth. My name is Heather Nowak. I'm the program administrator for the Southeastern Museums Conference. And before we jump in today, I'm going to cover a few housekeeping items. Be mindful that we are on a meeting format right now, so I encourage you to keep your computers muted. We will have time to share at the end. However, feel free to turn on your video so we can see you all. I would also like to take a moment and encourage you to join us for our virtual happy hour holiday edition on December 19th at 5 p.m. Eastern. It will be our last one for the year, so grab a fun sweater, turn on a festive background, and join us for some fun conversations. Since we're talking about professional organizations and leveraging that connection, this is a good way to network with your peers, so join us for that. For housekeeping, if you need closed captioning, it is available. Simply click the CC button in your Zoom screen and enable the auto transcription feature. You can also download a full transcript of the program by clicking More at the bottom of your Zoom screen, choose Captions, and then View Full Transcript. The program today will be recorded and emailed to each of you. For now, we encourage you to utilize the chat to introduce yourself and share thoughts or ideas. Again, at the end of the program, we will open the floor for questions, so please feel free to ask those in person or through the chat so we can address them. So with all that said, we will begin today's program. Again, all about leveraging professional organizations for career growth. And we will begin with our executive director, Zinnia Willits, to begin today's discussion. And then after that, we will go into a Q&A with our panelists. So Zinnia, would you like to get us started?
Sure. Hi, everybody. As Heather said, I'm Zinnia Willits. I'm the Executive Director of the Southeastern Museums Conference, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more about me and my journey with professional organizations, but we're a relatively small group, so this is pretty informal. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, but at the end, we can certainly answer anything you might want to ask about SEMC or any aspect of working with a professional organization. I'm super excited to have Ebony Belton and Chase Tomlin and Stacy Watson also here with us today to talk about their journeys with professional organizations. But to get us started and to kind of frame it, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I just have a brief PowerPoint talking a little bit more, like I said, about me, about SEMC, and about some of the different ways that you can get involved, no matter if you're new to our organization, if you're thinking about joining our organization, where you are in your career. There is a place for you here. And I'm going to say it now, a professional organization can open all kinds of doors that you may not have thought of. And a lot of that comes through networking. So thank you all for coming, first of all. Go ahead and share my screen. All right. So again, today you're joining us for this session, Leveraging Professional Organizations for Career Growth. And I just put all of these are all of the different ways that you could potentially get involved with the Southeastern Museums Conference. This is just our suite of graphics. You'll see these on our social media channels, populated throughout our website, but it really is kind of a good visual representation of who we are and what we do. Everything from offering competitions to having volunteer opportunities, in-person programs, publications, scholarships, promoting your colleagues through the Ones to Watch program, sharing good news. This is a lot of who SEMC is, and different ways to get involved. So with that, just a little bit more about me. Like I said, I am Zinnia Willits, and I've been in this role with the Southeastern Museums Conference for about 4.5 years now. But prior to that, I spent 17 years at the Gibbs Museum of Art in Charleston, South Carolina. I had many different titles over the course of my career there, but I started working with the collections and exhibitions, and my final title there was Director of Collections and Operations. So not only was I overseeing all of the exhibition installations and all kinds of other things. But at one point, they put the building under me. So all of the operations, working with security staff, frontline staff, visitor services. So the point on that is I am a museum professional as well. And one of the reasons I am in this role with the Southeastern Museums Conference today is because of my involvement with professional organizations throughout my career. Like I said, I started in this role in, gosh, May of 2020. It was kind of a difficult time to switch jobs, but I was on a career trajectory, a path towards this role. And so much of that came from the way that I involved myself with SEMC at different points in my career. And for me, it became a natural next step to move into more of a leadership role. So that's just a little bit about me, but I just do like to frame it because I feel like sometimes people come to association leadership without really having a grounding in the association work. And I am with all of you who are working in museums. I understand the challenges and successes from the past few years and going forward. And I think that that frames a lot of how I approach leadership with SEMC, just in terms of really trying to understand the needs of our members. So with that being said, if you are newer to our organization, or maybe you're just dropping in to check us out, I just wanted to talk a little bit more about the Southeastern Museums Conference and who we are. This is our mission. The Southeastern Museums Conference is a membership organization that fosters networking, professional development, educational opportunities, communication, and diversity for museums in the 12 Southeastern states, as well as the U.S. Virgin Island and Puerto Rico. So right now we are a membership-based organization, and we have a membership of about 2,000. We're sitting around there, and that includes both institutional members and individual members. In terms of institutional members, we have about 500 throughout the Southeast. And then within those institutions, you can bundle in all of your staff, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. I always like to put this particular image up as something that I do think really reflects who the Southeastern Museum Conference is as an organization. This is Key Fletcher. She is the director of the um, Mosaic Templars Cultural Center. I'm sorry, I always get those words um, juxtaposed in Little Rock, Arkansas, and Key was the keynote speaker for our 2022 annual meeting in Northwest Arkansas. I love a good selfie, and this was the first time I had seen a keynote speaker do this, but it was perfect. It gave a reflection of who was there at the conference and just of the feeling in the room after spending a few days together with professional networking. So the annual meeting is one of SEMC's. It's one of our major events throughout the year. If you haven't been to an SEMC, it's 3 days. We move around from city to city. This last year, we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, just a month ago. But these events have all kinds of ways to network, learn more about the local museum culture, and attend professional sessions. And there is always a keynote speaker in there. In addition to, and I'm running over these really quickly, I'll deep dive into a little bit more, but in addition to the annual meeting, we also have a regional publication called Inside SEMC. It comes out 3 times a year, and this is a great way to learn more about what's going on in museums across the region and also to get published, to write something for a regional publication. We do virtual programming every month. Heather can talk more about that later. But these are some of the networking events that we have and really good ways to get involved. So, all right. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my own trajectory and how I have used professional organizations over the years. As I said, I started out at the Gibbs Museum of Art. I was younger in my career. I guess at that point I would put myself in that emerging museum professionals category. I'm definitely moved on from that now. But I didn't really know about professional organizations. I remember when I was in graduate school, I was working at the campus museum. I went to the University of South Carolina for my master's degree. And the staff at the McKissick Museum were all going to a conference, and I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know that there was a place for students in the conference, and they took me along with them. So my first SEMC was on Jekyll Island many, 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 many years ago, with the staff at the McKissick Museum. And so it was again kind of a transformative experience when you realize that you're with hundreds of people who share the same interest and passion for museum work and the field as you do, and then also kind of go through the same challenges within your organization. And it's finding community, and it was very impactful for me. When I got into my career, I had a lot going on. I had young children and was trying to balance work and life and all the things. So it took me a little bit to find a professional organization at my career stage. Um, but once my kids got a little bit older and I had been at the art museum for maybe 8 or 9 years, I was beginning to feel a little stuck. I wasn't quite sure. I live in Charleston, South Carolina. I think my family wanted to stay there. So was really looking around like what is the career trajectory, what is the upward movement in this particular organization. And it was a regional art museum with a staff of about 20, so there wasn't a ton of moving up, at least at that point. And so that's when I really began to look at professional organizations. And I had some friends who were active in the South Carolina Federation of Museums. So, first of all, even though you're here for an SEMC program, I'm going to say, as I always do, look to your state organizations first. State museum organizations are really important. They're usually very low cost in terms of a membership. And it's a great way to not only support what's going on in your state, but begin to build your network. So I did that with South Carolina Federation of Museums. Um, I, I basically said I would like to get involved, and the next thing I knew, I was the chair of the conference. So here I was, a collections manager in an art museum, and all of a sudden I had been, I had help, obviously, but had been tasked with doing things that were not really in my wheelhouse. I had never really done fundraising before, working with the exhibitors and planning the program for the conference. So I was working with the committee, but the point on all of this was I was immediately challenged to do things for this professional organization that weren't part of my day-to-day job at the Gibbs. And for for me, that was a way to sort of stay satisfied in my job in Charleston, but continue to grow professionally. And I think that's one of the main points about professional organizations is the work that you can do with a professional organization, the network. It doesn't have to be exactly what you do in your museum. So I did that first conference and I just wanted to keep doing more because I liked the way it felt. I liked feeling like I was learning. It was a different kind of professional development, and I was also just continuing to gain new skills and then figure out ways to maybe apply them to my job working with collections at the art museum. So my work with the South Carolina Federation of Museums definitely put me on a different leadership trajectory. The picture on the very left is when I became president of the organization after just a few years of being involved. And it was really very transformative for me. I saw the value, I saw how people responded to our conference and the way that the resources they were picking up to bring back to museums, especially smaller ones that were populated all through South Carolina. And I just wanted to keep going with that. Um, One thing I will say is that the more involved you get with a professional organization, whether it's the state level or regional, different doors begin to open. And this is not just a theory, like this is a proven fact, but you have to put yourself out there. So through South Carolina Federation of Museums, I met some more people with the Southeastern Museums Conference, and I decided I really would like to get involved now at a regional level. Um, one thing leads to another, and being involved on a committee um, can really begin to put you on a different path. So my work with the Southeastern Museums Conference went from being I was the evaluation chair. That was the first job that Susan Perry gave me, and she handed me a box with 80 envelopes in it and said, "Here, these are the evaluations from all the sessions. Can you summarize them and send them back to all the speakers?" Okay, sure. But the point is, I had offered my assistance. She gave me a job and I wanted to do it. And I just kept going with that. Some of the other pictures, the one in the center there is from Museum Advocacy Day. I'll talk a little bit more about that. But really, the idea of going to Washington, D.C. and doing advocacy for museums, that all started with the South Carolina Federation of Museums as I watched leaders before me being involved in that process. So throughout the I was learning throughout my entire career and just kept going. Once I was with SEMC, and I'm like, well, I wonder what the American Alliance of Museums has to offer. And and I wanted to be then involved at the national level. And so I found myself on the program committee for AAM. But all of these things were connected. And each time I made a jump into a different realm, it really was because of someone I had met who saw the work I was doing and encouraged me to keep going. So I can't stress enough how important it is to build your network and to let people know you're interested in getting involved. That's super important. With SEMC, I don't know if people even know anymore, but I was on the council. I was on the program committee. I will talk about all these things briefly in a minute. Then I was on the council, which is the Southeastern Museums Conference. That's what we call our board of directors. And then I was actually the president of the board. So I was in that role when the previous executive director retired. And I kind of felt called. Um, I had two different passions. One was working in the art museum, and boy, do I miss that all the time. I loved my job at the Gibbs, I really did, but I also felt equally driven to commit to bigger leadership role for SEMC, and so that's kind of my trajectory using professional networks for my own career. But what I want to talk about now, just briefly, is different ways to use this particular professional organization to move your career forward. And one of the things that I'm going to say is putting yourself out there a little bit, even if it's sending an email to say, "Hey, I'm interested in doing more." That's a really important thing to take away from this. I've seen and I've talked to a lot of emerging museum professionals lately who said, well, we feel like we're bothering people if we send them an email or if we ask people who are longer in their careers questions. That's not true. Everybody, and one thing about the museum profession is people are very giving and want to nurture the next generation. And if anytime you email me, I will always respond and try and help and encourage. So I think that this is a really giving community that wants to elevate those at all stages of career. So me, Heather, Carla, any staff at SEMC, we're always here to answer questions and to try and route you to the right direction based on your interests and what you're doing. So first of all, in terms of leveraging professional organizations to move your career forward, membership is a really good start. So their SEMC offers individual memberships. We offer institutional memberships and corporate memberships. So even if you are in a consulting type of role and you want your business to have a membership within the Southeastern Museum Conference, there's an option for that. One thing about institutional membership, if you don't know, if you're working in an organization and you're not sure if your institution is a member, you are a member. All of our all staff, so let's see, I saw Tamia on here. The South Carolina State Museum is an institutional member of the Southeastern Museums Conference. So that means Tamia and everyone on that staff also receive SEMC benefits. However, your individual member emails, your individual emails need to be added to that membership bundle. So if you're not sure, I would encourage you to find out, one, if your organization is a member, and you can just ask us, email us, and we will tell you. And then find out who in your organization is the bundle coordinator, because they need to add you to the list so that you're getting all of our communications. Individual memberships start at $45, or they are just $45. We've tried to keep the costs the same. Individual memberships are also really good if you're switching jobs, if you're kind of moving throughout, because then the membership travels with you. So just something to think about. The next thing I think you can really do, and I'm going to say it over and over, is get your name out there. Some of these things on this slide you can do if you're new to SEMC, if you're not quite sure yet how you want to get involved. These are some really easy things you can do that require very minimal effort. Attend one of our virtual programs. It's great to go back and watch the recording, but we do them live. They're monthly. So the fact that you're here is awesome. When you're in one of those virtual programs, ask a question in the chat. I mean, even if or introduce yourself. It's just really important. And those of us who are on the programmatic end, we begin to see people's names in the chat and we recognize them. And what you want is you want your name to be associated with, like, oh yeah, didn't Ebony Belton say that she had that kind of a experience at her organization? And so the name recognition is really important. And just being active on a chat is a pretty easy thing to do. You can definitely join one of SEMC's Facebook groups. You know, Facebook seems to be for those of us of a different generation, but that's kind of where our groups live right now. We have an emerging museum professionals Facebook page, a mid-career museum professionals Facebook page, an educators Facebook page. Those are all, you can just add yourself or like it. I can't remember how it works, but ask a question in those groups. Use the network. You don't even have to be an SEMC member to join those and to kind of lurk. That's fine. But again, if beginning to see the same names pop up over and over, it triggers something. And then when we're looking for someone, didn't someone say they were interested in that? Maybe they'd be good for a committee. That being said, you can like and comment on any of our Facebook posts. It's just another way, an easy way to use a professional organization and become more known. We do these virtual happy hours. We've been doing them since the COVID days. And they're monthly and they're super informal. We actually have one tomorrow at 5 o'clock, and the link is always on the Facebook page and we send it out. I believe it's on the website as well. But these are, it's funny and there's no script to it. It's just a way to end your week and to see who's joined that week and say, hey, and meet some new people. So that's another easy thing to do. These member mixers are relatively new to SEMC. We just did the one, that's the image up there at the top in Atlanta. So if a member mixer is coming to your area, keep an eye out and definitely come and join us. I'm actually working on one for Charlotte area, probably after the new year. So if you've been in our professional organization for a while, And I'll speed through this. I realize I'm taking too much time. Here are some things that you can do next that require a little bit more effort, but also have the big return on that investment. You can submit an article for Inside SEMC. That's again the regional publication. We something about a project that you're doing at work or an exhibition that you have. We want to hear from you and we want to publish it as well. You can certainly submit if you have an idea for a program. Heather would love to hear that and help you work through that idea and maybe be a speaker in a virtual program. That's, another way to not only will you get the sort of face recognition then with all of our marketing, but you will be known and associated with a certain topic. So that's pretty important. You can volunteer at our annual meeting. Each year, we always have a volunteer rate, and hanging around the registration table is a really great way to learn a lot, and you hear a lot, and you get to meet all kinds of different people. So volunteering is a great way. And then also presenting a session at our annual meeting. Session proposals for 2025 will be out soon, but that's another a really great way to begin to get involved. So these couple things are a much bigger time commitment and maybe something you want to work toward after having, some few years or whatnot under your belt with SEMC. But our program committee, this is a group that's really important and help us design and develop the annual meeting program. We can take about 30. The application process for the 2025 program committee is open now. You can find all that information on SEMC's website. We do have affinity groups. We have a emerging museum professionals group. We have a mid-career museum professionals group. We have an equity and inclusion action team. All of these groups need leadership. And so that's a good way to get involved going forward. The image right there with Heather and I, that's with Patrick Martin and Celine Anchetta. They are the two current chairs of our emerging museum professional group. The picture up on the top is our council, or the council from last year. We just had a turnover of officers and some new members. And then, of course, at the bottom is our program committee. So just briefly, there are other SEMC offers to in-person programs. There's our Jekyll Island Management Institute. This is a 20-year-old program. We run this program every other year. It's not really a deep dive into museum work. It is an overview of all of the different aspects of how a museum operates. These are cohort-based. There is an application process, and if you go through one of these programs, that return on your time investment is huge in terms of the network that you create and the bond, and as well as the knowledge that you pick up. This was our Leadership Institute group from the 2024, just this past year. And the Leadership Institute is a newer program. We've run this one for 3 or 4 years now. And we're actually kind of thinking through how it's going to look in the future. We may go to more of a hybrid model where it's not completely in person. So stay tuned on that. Just briefly, a few other ways that you can use, not necessarily SEMC, but other professional organizations. I always say the American Alliance of Museums, being a peer reviewer, and this is for those who are more mid-career, but this is a huge, I love doing this. I'm an accreditation reviewer and with the museum assessment programs. And so you go to other museums and are able to offer some counsel on their roadmap for the future. And it's a really great way to give back the later you are in your career. Museum Advocacy Day is always in Washington, D.C. in February. If you can go either through your museum or through your state organization, I highly encourage this. And then one thing I've been telling people a lot lately, it's a lot of work, but being a grant reviewer for the Institute of Museum and Library Services or the NEH or NEA, they put those calls out for grant reviewers every now and then. And it's work, but the opportunity to meet other individuals who will be on the grant review panel with you, and you get really great insight into what it takes to kind of get a federal grant through the process. So that's just my own personal plug if you have that opportunity in the future. So at that point, I'm going to stop and turn it over to the rest of the panel. But I please consider coming to the Southeastern Museums Conference annual meeting in 2025. We'll be in Montgomery, Alabama, and we've got a great, we're already really excited about what that's going to look like. Whew. Sorry, guys. I know I went too long.
Yeah, that was really great. I mean, it's a great overview of all the things that you can do to get involved. And I know sometimes growth and comfort doesn't go together, but as long as you're making that push to invest in yourself, the sky is the limit and it's what you put into it. So we hope you are encouraged now to become more involved in other professional organizations, not only SEMC, but at your state and other organizations. So we'll get into some Q&A time with our esteemed panel here. We have Chase Tomlin, we have Stacy Watson, and Ebony Belton, who will be sharing with us. And so I just want to start the conversation by just asking you to tell us how you found SEMC and how long you've been a member. Stacy, we'll start with you.
Okay, hi everybody. I hope everybody's doing well on your end. Um, I came to SEMC in 2021, was my first time, and I actually came through the position as former director of equitable partnerships at the National Quilt Museum. So in Paducah, Kentucky, I was working as the director, and my colleagues who were already working at the National Quilt Museum were inquiring about attending and going to SEMC that year. And unfortunately, nobody could attend. And I was willing to attend because I had never been to SEMC. And also, I started speaking and reaching out to people who I saw were involved in the museum profession. Just like Zinnia had mentioned, I just emailed someone blind and said, what is the best organization to, get to know about as far as SEMC, of course, AAAM, and some other museum organizations. And SEMC was coming up immediately, I think within a month of the time that I inquired about it. And Lance Wheeler had mentioned you should come to SEMC. So he encouraged me to come to SEMC at the time. And so I did come, and the National Quilt Museum supported me in going to SEMC. So that was the first time that I came to SEMC. I became a member and started being involved in that way.
That's awesome. So listen to your peers. They have good information for you too. All right, Ebony, what about you?
So for me, I think I was initially introduced to SEMC through my job at Historic Columbia because they are institutional members at the time. And I didn't really think too much about it at that point because I was a senior in college, kind of just trying to see that transition. Because for a lot of people, I didn't know I wanted to go into museums until my senior year. That's how college works sometimes. And I didn't really know if that was something I wanted to do. So I didn't really think about SEMC too much more. Then the following year, former council member Lance Wheeler was like, hey, have you heard of this organization? I think you would be a good asset to this and this will help you with your career because at this point in time, I'm really only a little over 3 years into the museum game, EMP here. So just having that extra guidance. And then I think that's the same year that I applied for the travel scholarship for the conference to go to Arkansas. And I've just kind of been here ever since, just making sure that I'm involved within the organization and promoting SEMC.
And now council member. So
yes,
we're so excited for you, Ebony. All right, Chase, what about you?
Hey everyone. First, I just want to say thanks everyone for taking time out of your day to be here with us. I found SEMC through my state organization. As Zinnia mentioned, they're incredibly important. I was relatively new to the museum field, roughly 2 years in, and I was encouraged by my direct supervisor to start exploring opportunities for professional growth. So I attended the Louisiana Association of Museums annual conference last year in 2023. And it was just happenstance, fortuitous. Zinnia filled a vacant spot. It was kind of unexpected, and she flew down last minute and gave a keynote that was very similar to today's discussion, in fact. And I was intrigued and interested. I wanted to kind of look at additional opportunities beyond the borders of the great state of Louisiana. So that night, a participating institution was hosting a reception, and Zinnia was there in attendance. And so I decided I would chat with her about what is possible, what's out there, to explore SEMC's offerings in a little more depth.
Right. So takeaways here: listen to your peers, seek advice from people. That advice is instrumental in some of these situations. So, Zinnia, do you want to have anything else you want to add?
I just was gonna say, Stacy and I say this at the first timers welcome that we do at the conference, but as I said before, people really want to support the work of those newer to the field. And when we're at the conference, if you see a group of people standing and talking, if you're kind of on the edge, you watch that circle open. And I wouldn't say it if it wasn't true. And I've seen it and all over the place. So sort of like what Chase was saying, you have to be bold sometimes. And if you want to meet somebody, you gotta just go do it.
Yeah, it really shows initiative. And we always welcome, if you're at a conference and you see any of the staff or, Zinnia, I mean, we want you to come up and say hello. We want to know who you are and what work you're doing. So just put yourselves out there. All right, so moving on, I would like to go to each of you and just kind of say, I know y'all are kind of newer to SEMC, but since becoming a member, what purposeful moves have you taken to utilize your membership or become more involved? So, Ebony, we'll start with you.
There we go. I think, well, first, before anything, I would say volunteering at conference. I always think in most professional organizations, conference is the gateway to everything that the organization has to offer. But what I really enjoyed for the past 2 years volunteering, first in Louisville and then this year at the past conference, is that it's really a very intimate networking opportunity outside of just helping people register, telling people what rooms to go to for respective sessions. Even just from this conference in particular, because I think a lot of times when you're working where I work, we work at the university, we work in silos. So you tend to just, not that you don't care about the people, you don't care about the work they're doing, but just overlook the people that are literally down the street from you from another museum and what they're doing. So I believe her name is Renee Adantis, and she came and she also was a volunteer, and we talked while we were at our volunteer session. And I ended up actually giving her an impromptu tour of USC because she had just arrived at USC a few months ago and gave her a little bit more of that intimate history of the university. And I would have never known her, or rather, it would have took a while to meet her via the university had we not had the opportunity at SEMC. So I think that's really the biggest thing. And then I think another personal move for myself is really getting the youth involved, youth being the EMPs, because a lot of people, as Zinnia was saying, when you're an EMP, you just don't want to bother anybody, but that's what you're supposed to do. You have to bother people. You have to ask these questions. I was the same way. I don't know if Zinnia can remember this, but I didn't talk this much to do a whole lot of this kind of thing when I first got into this field, but obviously with public history, you have to do those things. So promoting, and then especially at conference, we even have a group of children from the AUC. I always get that mixed up with Spelman, Morehouse, and Clark Atlanta, and getting those students. So understanding the importance of having more diversity within SEMC and showing these college students that that's attainable, and just having that example for them. So I think those are a few things I've done so far to be purposeful within this organization for membership.
Awesome. Chase, same question for you.
Well, in a year, I think that the list is kind of long. I tend to aim kind of high, I think. My first effort to really take advantage of opportunities that SEMC offers to be perfectly transparent, began with rejection. I applied to participate in the Leadership Institute. I was not accepted, but I was also not disheartened. I do tend to apply for things that maybe I'm not qualified for exactly. So then I applied for the program committee, which I was accepted for, and that was a very meaningful way to get involved, I think, and to give back to the community. And I also learned a lot, and it's a great opportunity to network. So during the mid-year meeting, through meeting other museum professionals, I was asked to be a juror for the exhibition competition that would recognize and award different institutions for their exhibits at the annual conference. I volunteered to help with the programming efforts with groups coming to New Orleans for the day and exploring our museum. So hosting that group. And most recently, I was accepted into the Jekyll Island Management Institute, which I'm very much looking forward to being a part of. So that is the next part of my journey with SEMC. So, within my first year of being really actively engaged and participating with the organization, I've kind of tried to hit all of the stops. And Zinnia did mention the museum assessment peer review program with AAM, which I was also accepted to participate in, likely because of the things that I've done with SEMC. So still trying to, make sure that I'm contributing and giving back, but also using the opportunities available to me for my own growth and for my own professional development.
What it's about. You've been very busy, Chase. Thanks for all you're doing with the organization. All right, Stacy, what meaningful moves have you taken?
Well, from the initial introduction to SEMC was for me in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I will say that working at the National Quilt Museum as a director of Equitable Partnerships, I was able to see what was needed versus what wasn't, and go in to other museums to build those relationships and network. And when I went to Chattanooga for the SEMC annual conference, I was able to develop a great relationship with the Hunter Museum, the Hunter Museum of Art. And so once I started creating that type of network with that museum, it allowed me to do something historical at the National Quilt Museum, which was being able to bring in artists of color, especially well-known artists who had not been featured at the National Quilt Museum. So building those different type of relationships where I could do loan agreements and, have these type of art or have this type of artwork be seen. It also opened up the opportunity for the local community to see art that they wouldn't have to travel to, versus going to Chicago, going to New York to see these grand exhibits, or to see or put their hands near artwork that, was considered to be fine art. And we had it right there in the National Quilt Museum. And I would not have been able to do that if I did not establish that relationship that was created from the opportunity of SEMC being in Chattanooga. From there, my reputation as the quilt lady pretty much came about, and it began to develop, and people started to look for me to provide opportunities for a lot of people who were not being seen. And that was really for Black women in quilting. And so it became one of the things that I became focused on doing, which was creating opportunities for Black women in quilting to be seen, and to create an exhibition that came from that as well. And that exhibition was recognized and nationally recognized, and then publications. And I was able to talk about those relationships that started from just one small introduction, and then it turned into a national recognition. From there, going on to be a full-time judge for the largest quilt competition because of my experience in quilting and working at the Quilt Museum. I would also say that working at or being a part of SEMC and being exposed to SEMC, I was able to get a travel scholarship, which I'm very thankful for in my second year of attending. And then I was able to publish an article and inside SEMC and be able to talk about my experience, and that opportunity was provided. And then from there, I started to be more involved with Zinnia by being the co-host of First Timers Welcome. So now that's something that has become a staple and that I look forward to doing every year to help incoming attendees and first time attendees to kind of get out of the mode of saying, I'm at a conference, but I don't know what to do here and I'm just attending so that, I can put this on my resume. But I want to help them utilize their, utilize the experience of being a part of SEMC. And I hope that as in my role at SEMC, as first timers welcome, or even stepping back and being a part of like sponsors and funding and uh, donorship and things of that nature, being able to just to see and talk about ways of how I can see from the outside how to provide valuable information in order to make SEMC more diverse, and even speaking about different programs and workshops and things of that nature. I'm happy to be here. It was just 3 years ago, and I feel like I'm fully invested, and I would love to continue to be more active and involved in any way that I can.
You want to add anything, Zinnia?
Yeah, all three of you have really um, done a lot already within this organization, and it just makes me smile to have you all here. One of the things that I was going to say too about being purposeful, a purposeful move. This isn't necessarily for SEMC, I actually went to the executive director and I said, I want to be involved, like give me a job. I mean, that was pretty purposeful. But for AAM, for the program committee, they have a whole process, and it used to be a nomination process, but I nominated myself. I was like, I want to be on this program committee at the national level, and I'm not going to maneuver around. I'm just going to nominate myself. And I think sometimes doing that, it's okay. We laugh a lot. Sometimes shameless self-promotion is the only way to like get yourself out there. So don't overthink that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you talking about virtual programming, like I know we were talking about like being in physical places, but there's so many virtual opportunities for you to, promote yourself and to be in front of people. So don't discount the virtual components of membership as well. And then you don't even have to be a member in some like our virtual happy hours. You don't have to be a member. Just come in, put yourself out there, and put your face in front of people. So don't discredit the virtual components as well. So I want to leave time for questions at the end, but I do, since we're having such a good conversation, very quickly, I would love to hear from the panel if you could offer just one really quick piece of advice to anyone who's considering joining a professional organization or who wants to, become more involved in the organization. What's one little quick piece of advice you would offer everyone? Ebony, I'll start with you.
I would say it's okay to have those initial anxieties about joining organizations, becoming a part of them. However, you feel so much better once you put yourself out there and you start doing the work. So I'm just saying, don't let that initial shock of what's coming stop you from what you're doing, because you're going to have people like here at SEMC to be there with you every step of the way.
That's great. All right, Stacy, what's your advice?
Mine is really quite simple. I'm going to say follow-up emails. So following up with emails is how I became involved and invested. And the next thing you know, it became like full-blown communication for me. So if you meet somebody at a conference, or let's just say you meet someone at a networking event, it's okay to simply take 5 minutes while you're standing there. You go off to the restroom, whatever it is that you decide to do, and just say, hey, it was nice meeting you. That way you don't forget. You also sent that email as well. And I think it's always good to have that email and follow up so you remember what you talked about, what was discussed. It could be a job, it could be, somebody invited you to come to something, it could be dinner, whatever it is, just follow up, establish that, and do not be afraid to bother someone. Just follow up and, respond to people because some people forget there's a lot going on in various environments. And so the best thing to do is follow up and talk about what it is that you all had a conversation about. I think it's always better to do it within the first 10 to 15 minutes. So I'm big on follow-up emails.
That's awesome. Great advice. All right, Chase, we'll end with you.
At the risk of maybe seeming a little too simple, I would say put in the effort. Don't just join, but participate. You're only going to get out of something that you put into it. You mentioned earlier, and I think it's the perfect way to say it, growth and comfort are not always, directly compatible. No human growth comes without some expenditure of effort or exertion. So, you got to be willing to put yourself out there, like Ebony said, and actually actively engage. You can't just show up to conference and absorb your way into growth. So yeah, just make the effort and you'll be rewarded.
You have something else, Stacy?
I would also just say, ask questions. Ask questions. No matter what, ask questions. Ask as many, if it sounds crazy, it might be crazy. So what? Someone has a crazy answer for you, but ask questions.
Yeah, that's so true. All right, Zinnia, anything? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to throw in mine. Whatever conference, if you make it to a conference, if it's a state, a regional, a national, if you can find a way to meet the people who are organizing it, the director of the conference, the staff of the conference, that's really huge. And even though we're running around during the conference, we want, as Heather said earlier, we want to meet you. And like making that, sort of, even if it's 2 minutes, hey, I just wanted to introduce myself. I'm from wherever. You've now made that initial contact to then follow up and say, thank you. I've met you at the conference. It's small interactions like that, and getting to know the people who are the staff of each of these organizations is important and can help you, and maybe even give a comfort level to send that follow-up email because you've had that initial interaction. And Ebony, I'm so glad that you met is it Renata at registration.
Yeah, I think her name is Renata.
Yeah, because that was she and I sort of had an email conversation even before the conference. And so I pointed her to volunteering, and she was going to be new to our region and to South Carolina, really. I think she came from Texas. So that's a really great story of how being a little bold in an email, like as Stacy was saying, like just send the email and then your name is lodged in there. And I don't remember everything, but I can be like, oh yeah, they sent me an email. And I remember. We'll figure it out and we'll get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would also encourage you all to, I know times are tough and money can be tight in some situations, or you may not have your organization support, but we have ample opportunities to apply for scholarships and to also utilize the volunteer rate. We try to make opportunities accessible for everybody, no matter what their situation is. And also we have a wonderful student rate. So being a student shouldn't hold you back either. We do offer a really good rate for that. And we offer, poster presentations and other ways that students can get involved also. So yeah, just get out there and make the effort. Sometimes small things become, big impact. So if there's any questions, we would be happy to open up the floor to have anyone ask. You're more than welcome to turn on your camera or to ask in the chat. But again, put yourself out there, ask the question, whatever you want to know, we're here to answer. So we'll open up the floor now for questions if anyone has any.
We answered them all.
I think so. I just want to say we do appreciate Chase and Stacy and Ebony for taking the time out of their busy schedules to talk about their SEMC journey. And, we're just looking forward to what comes next. And we're always here to help. So please feel free to reach out to us afterwards. We will be sending out the recording to everyone. So if there's no other questions, we can stay on for just a little longer, or just don't let us hold you back. Okay, I guess we did our jobs. Good job. Good job, panelists. Y'all answered everything. And oh, here we go. We have a question in the chat. What are some tips you have for smaller professional organizations to add value for their memberships? I would start with virtual programming. Again, it's low cost way. It's included in your membership. We offer virtual programming on all aspects of museum work. So if you're wanting to learn more about 101 topics or about emerging trends, we do offer monthly virtual programming to kind of hone your skills and to again put yourself out there. So that's one way you can do it without having to physically leave your locations or budget issues. So virtual programming would be one way smaller organizations can use their membership.
But I would say too, even providing for us, being able to provide a space just for these types of conversations that's more informal is important to SEMC, and that's a time just to come in and ask the questions, maybe make a connection that you can bring back to your smaller organization. But if you have ideas to speaking on a virtual program or having all of your staff watch one together, those are just some additional insights. Publish, write an article. I think that's a great, really, I think that's a great way to provide a platform to share the good work that you're doing at an organization, no matter how large or small regionally. I do, well, it's usually monthly. I'm a little behind, but we do an e-newsletter for all of our members. There's, different places in that to highlight member spotlights and that sort of thing. So if you have an idea for something, hey, we have this program here, would you mind promoting it on your social media channels? Like anything like that. I think liking and sharing SEMC things will do it back to you. Really, the social media aspect of it can sometimes, that's a good way to leverage just the exposure, I guess, to wider audience.
Stacey, did you have anything?
I was going to definitely say an e-newsletter. A newsletter is always great to help promote. And I would also say if you're able to do some type of community conversation or programming within your space, which makes members feel exclusive to just the space of that particular organization. Yeah. So, or you can have a members only day where you kind of highlight or show recognition to their members, whether it's snacks and victuals or whatever you want to offer, but providing these small, intimate, engaging topics for members to discuss and giving them the actual power to say what it is that they're interested in or what they would like to do or what they want to see. So that way they're more invested in the museum that they're supporting and or gifting to. So I would definitely consider having a community conversation with your members or programs in your space or in a newsletter or doing a members only type of event, which would make other people want to become members.
Yep, definitely. One last thing, and I know we're sort of over time and there's just a few of you, but we do have a LinkedIn group for SEMC. That's a really good space to, anybody can join. You just have to request access, but it's a good space to promote programs, things that you're doing at your own museum, and just engage on a platform that's, different than Facebook or Instagram or whatnot. So it's another place to be visible and active for SEMC.
Awesome. Well, if no one else has anyone or any other questions, thank you all again for joining us and for a great conversation. We hope you're encouraged. If you need any information, of course, you can find us online, through all the social channels. So again, be encouraged, and we hope to see you in the future.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. Have a great day.